Are you familiar with FBI Special Agents Kyle Seraphin?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name. Familiar with the name. Familiar with the name.
Let's bring in Kyle Seraphin. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Seraphin brought it to the public, and we're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
He's the host of something that strangely is called the Kyle Seraphin Show.
Kyle Seraphin, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Wednesday. It's November the 6th. And we're a little bit goofy over here today. We are, in fact, going to have a bit of a celebration. I also will tell you that I've been up, I was up all night watching the returns. I watched CNN have complete meltdowns. I've watched the Brits be unable to process what they saw in front of them. I watched how everyone that was sane and logical and reasonable understood what was happening, and those who couldn't refused to call what was obviously in front of us. I've never been more happy to be wrong about what is going on. We've got some things we're going to talk about. I brought on my brothers in arms here, Suspendables, George Hill, and Garret O'Boyle, the two G's that roll in the Suspendables crew. Yes, I'm wearing a plate carrier. Yes, we are kitted up. Why? Because I was ready for this last night. It's been sitting next to me, and I told George, this is how we're rolling. Folks, what an interesting day. I will be playing you some clips. We're going to have a lot of humor. Today is going to have some dirty language in it, not because of me, but because of the clips we grabbed. There's no other way to do it. People are upset and people are thrilled. It feels like we are waking up from what has basically been a nightmare. I think Garret and I are going to be able to share that. We don't have a ton of news coverage other than we will go through some of the races that are kind of interesting, Kerry Lake and so on, what's going on in Arizona. But thank you for joining our program. If you are watching us live, make sure you've hit the like button. If you're watching us tape delayed, make sure you hit the like button. If you love America and you think that there's a new birth of potential, let's call it, go ahead and hit the like button. That'd be great too. Yeah, I'm doing kind of my grand thumb impression. If you don't know who Flannel Daddy is, then that's on you. You guys fix yourselves. Let's do a little read for our longtime sponsor. Seems fitting today. I was drinking this all last night. This thing, I filled this up with some sort of chicory root tea-based thing. I don't know. I'm not drinking a lot right now. I'm not even drinking. This one is my major. This is a 40-ounce cup of freedom with a huge cup with a huge handle on it. You guys can get your own at patriotcoolers.com. The link is in the show description if you want to go to the Kyle Seraphin collection, which is in fact the Suspendables collection. Use promo code KYLE. Save yourself 10%. You're going to want to reward yourself. You're going to want to let people know where you work, what's up, and that you are, in fact, ready to do suspendable stuff. It's time. Who knew? I wouldn't have guessed it, but we do appreciate them for backing us, for believing in us from the beginning. If you guys want to support them and our program and have an outstanding product that you will not be ashamed of, go ahead and go to patriotcoolers.com. Like I said, promo code KYLE. Yeah, I'm a little bit slow out of the draw today. That is just the nature of the beast. Let me bring on my brothers here. Kaboom. Gentlemen, good morning. George, good morning.
Morning.
How are you doing, sir?
Couldn't be better.
That's what I like to hear. Garret O'Boyle, good morning.
Good morning to you, my fellow Suspendables.
That beard thing, I really wish it was back right now. I want your beard to be there, but I'm glad we don't have to start an insurgency as of today.
This is true. I was preparing for jihad, and I didn't shave it all the way down because I was like, maybe the time is not yet. And I guess the time was not quite yet. So I'll grow it back.
All right, good enough. I want to give you the full screen. I'm going to have you tell me your thoughts as because you were up late last night and you look like you've tied a couple on. I'm going to fix George's video, which I cropped all goofy. So let me just throw his first reactions as of last night, and then also kind of sleeping on it for a couple of minutes.
I was shockingly up way later than I anticipated because initially, well, you guys won't be surprised by this. I went to Bible study last night and completely tuned out, and it was great. Actually, it was just a little men's group, and we started kind of like a new section, and we're going through basically men of the Bible. And last night we were talking about Joshua, and it was very fitting because there's a lot of government ties into the early chapters of the book of Joshua. And so I was able to talk about that. Like, I probably brought a different perspective than most of the guys because of my position. And, then we did naturally talk about election day, and we all found it to be a consequential one. And I don't think any of us were really very hopeful. I was quite frank with them that I wasn't for the 2% of you out there who watch the American Radicals podcast with our other cohort, Steve Friend. You heard me yesterday saying that I thought Kamala Harris was going to win, and I did think that because I don't have a lot of hope in our system, and so I too am shockingly surprised and couldn't be happier to be wrong about that prediction. And let
me stop you for 1 second because people in the chat have noticed it. Last night I was doing election coverage with a bunch of people. I went on Ron Coleman's, and I went on John Burke's, and I went on with the ACTJ, our friend Sean Witzman. And the entire time that I was doing election discussions, there was this fly that was in this room. It was in my podcast studio. I don't know how it got here, but my kids have been letting him in. It was flying around. It was landing on the screen. It was landing up on my video. It was landing on the camera. It was all over the place. It just made the mistake of landing on my hat, and I just smashed it. And I'm feeling also victorious about that. Even on like 2.5 hours of sleep, I'm faster than a fly. So take that. I'm not going to have a Mike Pence moment. I'm going to destroy things that land on my head.
Take that.
Sorry.
No. It's your show, Kyle. You do what you want here.
Here's what I want to say. You brought up Bible study. You brought up that I think God's hand is in all of this. Interestingly enough, God will not be mocked. George, you want to talk about your thoughts that God will not be mocked?
So 2 states come to mind, Michigan and Wisconsin, typically not red states, not Republican-leaning states. And we had Kamala Harris mocking the sacrament of Holy Communion, receiving a Dorito at the hands of that horrible governor, Gretchen Whitmer.
Whitmer. I like Whitmer better. That's best.
I had it right the first time.
Whitmer.
And, they've been mocking Catholics. They mocked Catholics on Saturday Night Live. And the Catholic turnout in those 2 swing states, those historic blue wall, unscalable walls, were crumbled yesterday by a large Catholic turnout. So, you and I were talking about it earlier today, Kyle, that God will not be mocked. I don't want to be, blaspheming here, but I think that what they did motivated a lot of Christians to turn out yesterday, specifically Catholics in those 2 states. And I've talked to Garret about this before. I think if every Christian voted what they claim to be their values, well, the Democrat Party would cease to end overnight.
Let's go to their version of church. This mocking person, she made a couple of pandering comments. She tried to be something that I don't think is real. It's turned out she was in fact correct. That's also kind of funny. Sometimes God works in these mysterious ways. Let me share a little clip that bothered me at the time, and who knew how prescient it would be today.
Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. The path may seem hard, the work may seem heavy, but joy cometh in the morning, and church morning is on its way.
There it is.
Mm-hmm.
Who knew? And she hasn't been heard from in 15 hours at this point.
I imagine she's I don't know, 7 bottles of wine deep, maybe more.
Yeah, I agree. Working on her concession speech.
I'm sure
and Joe Biden's working on his "I told you so" speech.
Right. So the big winner, obviously, all of the folks in the MAGA movement, all the folks that are conservative and just want to be left alone in America. So that's libertarians, that's fellow travelers sort of in our world that just don't want to be messed with by a federal government. But also Joe Biden. Joe Biden gets a moment. Now, I think he would have lost in a much bigger way. I think it would have even been more decisive. But Joe Biden, as we like to call him here, also gets a moment of amusement, I have to imagine. You can't help but laugh about that sort of thing, huh? Poor guy.
When he wakes up, it's going to be a combination of "I told you so."
When will that be?
Freude, and and anger at the same time, and that actually his own wife Jill Biden put the final knife in his back with the red dress at the voting booth yesterday.
How about that? Okay, so we got some, like I said, we're going to have some fun, so let's just start with it right now. The memes are already rolling in, and this one's good.
This is going to be a great day for memes, isn't it?
It's going to be good. This is going to start it off pretty strong for you.
Worst vice president, you're the worst border czar. There's never been anybody bad like you. Kamala, you're fired. Get the hell out of here. Get out of here.
It will be a day of weeping and gnashing of teeth. There's no doubt in my mind. There's just no other way around it. I got another one for you. Let's go back to back. Who would you say are some of the biggest worthless celebrity proxies that exist on the political left? George, you got an idea?
Man.
Well, Bob De Niro comes to mind very quickly.
Trump won, and we couldn't do nothing about it. And that's it. I can believe it. I can't fuck it.
It's already started.
Oh man, it's going to be a fun day.
All of them are absolutely worthless. Laura Ingraham wrote a book, I don't know, probably like 15 years ago, Shut Up and Sing. I look at these people like organ grinder monkeys. Just entertain me, and then I really don't care what you have to say about anything. I just as soon listen to an interview with a porn star. I mean, these are vacuous people with no principles, no moral compass. I really don't care. But yet that's what the Harris campaign was, of rolling out one celebrity after another. And look where it got her, unemployed.
Okay, couple of little commentaries that I think that were salient last night that we talked about. And it came from actually my wife. Oh, dude, look at that mug. It's so legit. Folks, you want to find yourself? Can they buy those or no?
I actually just put they can. They're going to have to do a little work because you got to go buy a sticker pack. You got to go buy a sticker pack from our store.
But it'll go on any mug you like. Okay, hold on. Let me throw it on the screen. Folks, there it is. Promo code KYLE saves you 10% at the-suspendables.com, the-suspendables.com. That's GOB Actual, a.k.a. Garret O'Boyle's sweatshop where things are getting churned out. I think he's the monkey that does not have an organ grinding. He's actually just pressing shirts, and Mama O'Boyle is the boss and owns the company. So if you guys want to support them, go ahead and do that. That's a good looking cup, and even with the sticker on it, looks legit, right? Man. Well done.
I love it. It's become my go-to when I'm in here. You know what? Good. This is as good a time as any to give you guys my surprise. You see this? You see this?
Yeah.
You guys know what that is right there?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, look at those homies. So people don't understand, but we're probably about to see something. I don't know. Chris Wray doesn't have nearly as an iconic name.
True.
But Chris Wray is going to start probably packing things up and trying to figure out if he can get that last private jet flight home pretty soon.
He's going to be unburdened by what has been.
What say you about that, George? You have any instinct?
I heard from an FBI source this morning that there are close to 50 SESs at headquarters that are already eyeballing the door. And
they've got to be.
That's not hearsay.
No. Some of them are not just FBI agents. There's also high-level intel analysts that have been elevated into those positions. We actually have some footage from one of them last night. Did a live stream, interestingly enough, and here he is being very upset about what happened.
I can't believe Trump's actually going to win this fucking thing. Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm so pissed off. Fuck. God damn it.
That's a unfit boy. What happened to him?
He needs to be careful. He's going to blow a heart valve or have a stroke or both.
Why would he think that taking off his shirt was a good plan?
A Hulk Hogan moment for him? I don't know. Maybe
was that pre-torn? Because that was a pretty good tear, actually. To be honest,
that was gross. I'm glad I saw that after I ate breakfast.
It's definitely out there. All right. So one of the commentary pieces that I thought was really interesting, and my wife pointed this out to me, how amazing that this country, people in the political left in this country were so desperate to have the first female president that they accepted Hillary Clinton, who had to defraud her way to the top of the DNC ticket, who had to cheat Bernie Sanders out of a real Democratic primary. And that was fine with them, that she actually literally bought off the DNC with money because they were bankrupt. That happened in 2016, and they were unsuccessful. They tried it again with the same opponent. This time, they bumped off an old guy that was actually the sitting president, who theoretically has no ability to be president right now. We're all kind of just dealing with that. And they were able to, what? They were able to just think they were going to waltz into the White House again. And America just went like, no, dude. We already saw 2020 might end up being one of the strangest gifts that this country has ever gotten. Certainly awkward for all of us. Do you want to reflect any thoughts on that one, Garrett?
Man, dude, where do I even start? But I was telling my wife this morning, like, how even 2 years ago, it was a whirlwind of things that had happened. You know, back 2 years ago today. Man, I think I'd basically just gotten back from Virginia with our belongings that they finally let us get. But rewind 2 years prior to that, 2020 and, COVID and that election. Oh, dude, it certainly has been a whirlwind, but I agree. And it's especially because I typically lean, I know people would say pessimistic. I try to say realistic. Maybe it is a little bit of pessimism, because it must have opened up enough people's eyes to where now we have this result. I know that's a big part of it. You guys won't be shocked that I lean into the sovereignty of God most. So all of these things have happened on his divine timeline for some purposes. I'm certain we don't know the extent of most of those. But the way things have gone, not just in this country, but in the world in the last 4 years, have been absolutely mind-boggling for you Will Ferrell fans out there. And it's
is he one of your favorite human beings?
Yes. At least in the roles he plays, because he's another one of your foolish, arrogant sycophants of the left who comes out and says, make baby murder your number one topic and vote for her, which is just absolutely insane to anybody who understands the sanctity of human life, which obviously most of them on the left don't. And I think I took that as a mark, especially what happened in Florida with the amendments down there. Maybe there is a revival going on in this country to some degree, because I think people are seeing the evil. I think the evildoers they played their hand just a touch too soon, at least in America. I saw some graph that it was something insane of Western Europe. It was like 70% or more of most of those nations wanted Kamala Harris to win. Now, I don't care what Europe thinks, but it shows that things can get much worse. And at least for now, things are looking like they're getting better. And we've talked about our faith a little bit, and we've talked about Christians and Catholics in this country turning out to vote to some degree because of the scoffing nature and the mocking nature of the left. I do think that played a role, and there are still many people who say, well, you can't vote for Donald Trump because he's a racist and he's a rapist and he's all of these things. And you know what? We all are guilty. We all have done shameful, despicable things. And I think of especially King David. He was a murderous, adulterous, awful human being, yet the Bible says he was a man after God's own heart. How does that add up? And it's because when you do wrong, you still can repent. And quite frankly, I'm not even saying that Donald Trump is a repentant person, but look at Donald Trump from 2015 to today. I know in a lot of ways he does seem older, and he is, but in a lot of ways he has changed. I think back to the RNC shortly after his first assassination attempt. You saw a changed man there. I hope he comes to the full truth of what Christ did on the cross. I don't think he's there yet. That being said, still not my place to judge, but I think he's a different person than we had his first term. And hopefully that means good things for America.
I hope so too. George, you're kind of an analytical guy. Would that be fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do have a sense of humor, but it's rather dark, but yeah, I'm pretty much.
That's true. I just want to look. I'm going to throw this on the screen. We're going to discuss what it is. And what I want to know is, as an analytical person, give me possible explanations. What we have here is the popular vote in the United States for United States presidential elections. This is 2012, 2016, 2020, and 2024. So there we go. We're going back to Barack Obama's last success. And what you see are Democrat numbers, basically the exact same thing. They're slightly over 65 million. They go across the board in 2012, where the, who was that? Was it Mitt Romney or was that McCain? I think it was Romney. Romney loses there. Then you've got 2016, the popular vote obviously went over to Hillary Clinton, but Donald Trump won the Electoral College. Then you have this weird anomaly in 2020, and then you have 2024. The crazy thing is the line is nearly flat for the last 3 of 4 elections on the Democrat side. The only things are 2 outsized performances in 2020 and 2024 of Republicans. I'm going to go to George. George, what does that look like? Was there an enthusiasm moment there? Is that what happened?
Whether people want to admit it or not, there was some shenanigans going on there. And everybody knew it on both sides of the aisle.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe and the Democrats went too far with his 81 million votes. The reason that the Democrat line is relatively flat and stable up until then and then going forward is that the Democrats are ideologues. They adhere to an ideology that is anathema to conservatives, Republicans, Christians, Jews, and Muslims. On the Republican side of the House, people are more inclined to vote their representatives out of office. I posted on Twitter this morning that if the Republicans behave in a milquetoast manner after this election, that the Republican electorate will spit them out in 2 years regardless, because we're not committed to the Republican Party. We are committed to a sense of principles. The Democrats and their constituents are committed to an ideology. And that's the key difference. And that's why the Democrat numbers are flat. And that's why the Republican numbers go up and down within a range. But that's why they go up and down.
All right, let's talk about the significance of what could have happened, which did, of course, happen. But this is actually, while other places had called it, CNN was a bitter clinger to these other ideas. They didn't want to acknowledge what was happening in front of their eyes. And Chris Wallace, who sounds like kind of a crazy lady with an enormous tongue and a huge mouth that just continues to bobble around inside of him. And once you've heard him talk, you always will look at him like he's got Parkinson's. I don't know how he does it. I've been perfecting my Chris Wallace for a little while. This is going to sound...
That's very good.
It's pretty easy to actually do a Chris Wallace because he just seems like an old lady who shakes as he tries to give you his fat thoughts. He's got so much loose skin in his face and his mouth. It's borderline unbelievable. Anyway, this sounds exactly like Chris Wallace. Here he is doing his own version.
I mean, let's talk about the significance of a Republican Senate if, and I repeat, if Donald Trump is elected president. It means that they can confirm without any Democratic votes any appointment he makes to his cabinet, to the government, to the Supreme Court, should there be a vacancy. It's an enormous advantage to a president. And at this point, we haven't talked about it much, but in the House, although that hasn't been decided yet, the Republicans have flipped 3 Democratic seats. The Democrats haven't flipped a single Republican seat. So there is the possibility here of a complete united Republican government with Donald Trump as the president and with a Republican House and Senate, which means that in terms of appointments, in terms of immigration policy, economic policy, environmental policy.
On climate change and on abortion and all that. Amazingly, it looks like per CNN this morning, in addition to the fact that they finally have acknowledged Donald Trump is going to retake power, it looks like the Republicans flipped as many as 3 seats in the Senate so far for what's been called. There may even be more, I guess. Is probably not. And 5 in the House. So they've actually increased the holdings in the House, taken the Senate, taken the White House. Popular vote still in Donald Trump's favor by 4.5 million or so. What do you think there, George? What do you think about his analysis on this and the implications?
Oh, the horrors. I wonder if he felt the same way when Barack Obama was swept into office, when they controlled both houses of Congress. I'm sure we won't be able to find that on the Wayback Machine. So he has the vapors over, Donald Trump and the Republicans gaining both houses of Congress and the chief executive. But if the Republicans squander this, and I'll say it again, they will be gone in 2 years because we are not ideologues. We are committed to a sense of principles. And if they don't do what they promised, and early on, there will be heck to pay come the midterm elections.
How, and someone just mentioned that the impression that I do of Chris Wallace is also kind of like a Jimmy Stewart if Jimmy Stewart had some real problems at the end of his life. And they're not wrong. I think he's actually doing a Jimmy Stewart because it's kind of a throwback voice. You'll be shocked to learn that the Morning Joe crew, the Mika and Joe Scarborough crew, they're a little bit upset, and mostly they're upset about losing their lofty position as a place for undisputed information. So here they are crying about misinformation and what can happen. You can see she's almost wiping tears out of her face. I'm here for that.
A lot of very legitimate discussion here about how Democrats lost this. Yeah. But I just got a text from a member of Congress saying, something else we need to look at is how people are turning to social media, podcasts, and other non-traditional sources for their news, and also news stations that aren't news. And I canvassed in all of the battlegrounds. I was shocked by the amount of misinformation voters were truly repeating back to me. Truly shocked. I do believe this is what caused the collapse of the Democrats nationwide. You cannot win when people believe lies.
Go ahead, Garrett.
Morning Joe is probably what I've been looking forward to most because I know they are just going to be completely unhinged. But she is not the arbiter of what is true. She is not the arbiter of what is news. She is not the arbiter of what is even a news station, as she's sitting there claiming to be. Like, this is why they lost, because she is unhinged in an alleged land of the free. Some talking head on CNN does not get to dictate to Americans what is true, what isn't true, what is misinformation, what is disinformation, as she sits there and spouts disinformation daily, not in an alleged land of the free. You get to go out and you get to, even if you're wrong, even if you do stumble into some QAnon nonsense, you get to do that when you have a Bill of Rights, when you have a First Amendment. And if that skews your vote one way or another, well, comes with the territory of living in an allegedly free nation, Mika. Gosh, go F yourself.
I'm going to break, and we're going to do a sponsor because I think it's also salient for people to remember that this is not over. George, we're going to talk about some of the implications of what this could have globally, which I think is very interesting, but also domestically. So for those of you who live in an urban area, now is probably a time that you might want to think about this. The question is, do you think the country's going in the right direction? It looks like we're starting to go that way with this election. That's a good feeling, but we're not there yet. January is a little ways away. So if you're feeling alarmed and you're living in an urban area and you got a bunch of animals living near you, don't be surprised. Americans from all walks of life have been taking steps to prepare, just like we did in our family. We still have emergency food. I told George this morning, I'm psyched that I got it. I wouldn't want to go without it. It starts with having that emergency food supply. You should store it in your own home because it's the right thing to do. You never know what the people around you are going to be doing. You got to prepare for yourself and you got to take care of your own family. Right now, you can get ready with a 3-month emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. That's the one that we have. We've got 2 of them, actually. And if you want to try them out, you've got all kinds of varieties of delicious foods, from creamy stroganoff, the honey wheat bread, mushroom rice pilaf. The whole thing is going to give you 2,000 calories every single day, so you can get strong and fight, put on your plate carrier, and get to work. If you need to, this food kit is going to last you up to 25 years, so it'll handle the next election as well. You never know where we're going to be. Guys, you can go to preparelikekyle.com. It's preparelikekyle.com to order the 3-month emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. Again, it's preparelikekyle.com. Check them out. I still don't think we're in the clear when it comes to what could come down the line. Do you guys want to see what happened in Seattle last night? Did you catch some of this? Let's see it. Hey, if you live in an urban area, this sound of the megaphone announcing things is probably going to become familiar to you right now. There's going to be some very upset people in this room.
Do not interfere with the police while they're making arrests. If you interfere with the police, you'll be arrested. Move away. We encourage you to film. We just ask you that you give the officers some safe working space. So please move away from the officers while they are making arrests. We want you to film. We just want you to give them some space for a safe working environment. Standing on top of the police is not a safe working environment. Please give them a little more space.
They're very polite there in Portland.
Yes, I appreciate that reasonableness from the announcer. That was I commend that effort.
Here's what I want to. I want some analytical take on this from you, George. You got to do the CI program in Boston. You got to see the counterterrorism program, including domestic terrorism, and you were there in 2020 when we started seeing widespread riots across the entire country. Give me your thoughts about law enforcement's posture, whether it'll be different from what we saw in 2020, even in blue cities, if they got a chance to get their feet underneath them, or if you think we're going to see more of the same. Just any kind of freewheeling analysis that you might have on this sort of situation in the next few months.
I would assess that the middle's kind of empty out a little bit. That we'll see more on the edges on both the left and right side of the spectrum. I think we'll see the blue cities and the blue states become more turbulent. If we looked at the election results last night, Washington State, if you can believe it, actually got bluer last night. Maine continues to get bluer. I don't know what's going up there in those latitudes, but they seem to be losing their minds. And I see maybe in the red states that, the law enforcement spectrum, actually becoming a little bit more solidified and supported from a public standpoint. We saw George Gascon get voted out of office. So there are limits. The law enforcement community did not bring glory to themselves when they were enforcing some of the COVID mandates. So that has to be rebuilt in conjunction with the whole defund the police movement. That has to end. Why it wasn't put out there more often that Kamala Harris has started a GoFundMe page for the Minnesota rioters, the Minneapolis rioters, and others across the country.
Yep.
So I do see more polarization on both ends of the law enforcement, civil, public safety realm of things.
Let me throw something in on that too. You mentioned George Gascon. That was surprising to some people. So that George Gascon, who was the Soros-backed prosecutor that was basically destroying LA County and had been soft on crime for quite a while, was thrown out. But on top of that, Californians overwhelmingly, and I mean like very overwhelmingly, approved Proposition 36, which basically made it a felony to do retail theft and certain drug crimes. And they passed it by a 70-30 margin, that they actually wanted to get tougher on crime, a kind of a make crime again, or make criminals criminals again in California. So good for them. And so that also, if California is doing it, and you know how lib that is, people are fed up with living in this space. I think that maybe not Washington yet. Maybe it hasn't gotten bad enough there. But the people that are at the rock bottom, which is places like sometimes New York City gets there, and California seems to have looked over and go, dude, we cannot have all of our CVSs with everything behind plastic. We can't go shopping where we have to ask permission to pick up a single item that's $5.
But staying on local law enforcement, if Trump is going to stay true to his commitment for a mass deportation, he will have to engage local law enforcement to do that. Definitely. There are not nearly enough federal resources. So just like pushing the water in a balloon from one side to the other, if you start pulling law enforcement on mass deportation, that opens up opportunities for other people to engage in illegal criminal activities and maybe even affect public safety in an adverse fashion. So this is going to be interesting to see how this plays out, because immigration on the exit polls was still up there in number 1 or number 2 in most of the states on the exit polling. So if Trump expects to stay true to that promise, and J.D. Vance, who I'm sure has aspirations on fleeting up to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in 4 years, they're going to have to stay true to that promise, but it's going to come at a significant cost, and it's going to be local law enforcement that's going to have to shoulder a large portion of that weight.
It seems true. Here's another thing that people are going to have to pick up the burden on, and maybe some of you who are Trump voters didn't think about this, especially you single men out there that like to go dabble in the dating pool, or maybe you're in the hookup culture of going out to bars and looking for moderately to mid-attractive women who lean crazy lib. You probably didn't think about this, but now you're probably going to have 4 years worth of less opportunities for sowing your wild oats. Here's this lady letting us know how she feels about last night's result.
I personally think that if all of these men are voting to take our rights away, they don't deserve to touch a woman for the next 4 years. So, hope you thought that through, you guys.
So you lost that opportunity.
Yeah, I personally think that too. You know what I think for someone like her? Real men don't want to touch you because a real man wants to build a family. A real man wants to protect his woman, his wife, his children, his property, his belongings, his country. And you are opposed to that. And you know what I think? It's just my opinion, guys, but I think you should have a forced hysterectomy because your number one issue is baby murder. So how about that?
Just preclude the path. You don't have to mess with that. Isn't it interesting? This is the funniest sort of thing that's evolved out of. I've seen some very interesting arguments. And look, women, we're bagging on this because liberal white women were the ones that were driving any sort of idea that Kamala Harris would have a chance because she's unlikable to men, whether they be black, white, Hispanic, anybody who's got like regular levels of testosterone, even regular for 2024, isn't looking at her as a real choice to be leading anything. In fact, they probably would prefer a Joe Biden. At least he said he wants to go behind the gym, even if he's going to get knocked out. But this idea that women have basically taken things to the logical conclusion with the most important issue for females was the ability to be raw dogged with no consequences and then kill off their own young. Like, this is a really, really ugly thing for you to say is your biggest priority. Maybe that's why we have some of the weeping, the wailing, and the gnashing of teeth that we might see with people like this. This is going to be real. This is going to be in your state's well.
The crazy thing to me is that if this guy does end up winning again, all of the people who voted for him will be like happy and they'll just be celebrating. And everyone else, everyone who feels threatened by him is fucking scared. Like, we're scared for our lives. We're scared for our friends. Like, you have pro-life women dying because their doctors are scared to treat them.
I can't believe Trump's actually gonna win this fucking thing. Oh, Jesus Christ, I'm so pissed off. Fuck! God damn it!
And also that woman. I usually don't show bare breasts on this show, but what can you do?
You know, it's so offensive that a woman would think that their sole value is granting sexual favors to men, and that's their only leverage that they have. It's just, I can't describe how offensive that is. That's your only value. If that's the case, you should be either swinging from a pole or standing on a corner. If that's what you believe.
This is why we love George. This is like, that was the most tame way of saying what you just said too, but it was still, I think, very, I think you said it in a way that people can walk away and say it at work and not be upset. Garrett, you had probably your best, although it won't go viral because you're Garrett, but you had probably your best tweet of the year, I would say, I dare say. Can you paraphrase that? Because the other thing about men and women is we should acknowledge there's a difference there. And some men are probably going to realize that, huh?
Yeah, concur. And in fairness, I got to give credit where credit's due to a behind-the-scenes suspendable who Kyle introduced me to, actually, and he's a good man, and he's doing his thing, and I'm glad to know him. But he sent this, and I said, I'm stealing that verbatim. And then I went and found a tweet by Riley Gaines because I thought this would be perfect. I'll find something that she put out, and I'll just quote tweet it. And what he sent me and what I stole says, there's a dude pretending to be a chick somewhere, waking up, realizing they might have to actually try out for the men's team in the near future. And I just was like, you know, that's very poignant for this time because like the clip of the fat guy you just played again. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
A guy like that is completely unhinged, and maybe part of that's an act for his live stream. I don't know, but I tend to think when you're that obese and you're probably in your mom's basement and you're wearing a white Dudes for Harris shirt, you've lost the thread of what a man is. So you're probably a shade or two away from saying, you know what, I'm no longer a man. I'm a woman, and I'm going to go in the women's locker room and I'm going to go in the women's bathroom, because a lot of these people, they have disgusting sexual proclivities. That's quite frankly where it often goes, and especially for quote unquote trans men, or I guess they'd be trans men who think they're women or claim to be women. It's oftentimes a sexual gratification thing, and we're at this point where thankfully enough people enough people are like, this is madness. And I look at it as I think they played their hand too soon. But then it does make me wonder, like back to like Prop 36 in California. You got 70% of people who said, yeah, we should make crime again. Well, then why do you continue to vote for a Gavin Newsom or an Adam Schiff or a Kamala Harris? And then
by the way, they called it for Adam Schiff before there was even 1%. They just were like, yeah, because Adam Schiff wins. Because it's California.
Right.
Let me throw these headlines up. Folks, if you're just joining us and you've been living under a rock for the last, let's call it 15, 18 hours, and you didn't get woken up by the cheers of your neighbors, Donald Trump is retaking power, reluctantly admits CNN. There you have it. We're looking at 3 flipped Senate seats, which is incredible. Takes the majority by 2, which is not nothing. And then we're also looking at up to 5 House seats flipped as well. The best thing was, I think this is ABC. They went immediately to how it happened. There she is. Sad Kamala has not come out of her cage yet and told anybody. No concession speech yet, at least at the time that we are airing this. So what happened? We don't know. And then the last thing, which of course we have to touch on, as we just showed you the riots, law enforcement agencies across the country are preparing for unrest beyond Election Day. Specifically, what you're seeing is anti-scale fencing being put up in Washington, D.C., because of those totally unruly Trump people. Interesting that those fences were not there on January 6th of 2021. How fun that they've learned their lesson at least, huh? I'm sure they'll have the National Guard if they need it too. This time because they have to protect their own people. Part of having law enforcement in place and crowd control is actually to manage the people for their own good. That's always been the case, lest people get out of control or agent provocateurs do their thing. How telling is that, George? Do you think that's just that momentary blip where we are all just caught snoozing and we let it slide, or have they learned a lesson in a meaningful way that it was an honest operation?
An honest operation regarding the election, or what?
Yeah, that we're finally seeing them going ahead and preparing like 20 days, 40 days, that they're actually prepared. They're putting fencing in right now, 4 months out.
Yeah, no, I gave closed door testimony that January 6th was, a planned operation. The only issue is I had a limited amount of evidence that I could actually submit because there hasn't, actually been a real honest to God investigation as to how all of that happened. Steve Baker at the Blaze has been doing a tremendous amount of work, bringing that to light, along with a host of others. And I mean, no disrespect to short anyone else, but no, January 6th was an op, no doubt about it. And some stupid people unwittingly helped out. Shame on them. Mm-hmm. But I've maintained all along that the Democrats are not going to simply take a knee and say, we lost, we'll get you at the midterms, we'll get you in 4 years. That's not how authoritarians react to things like this. So they're going to react poorly. There is, I expect to be, some sort of violence going forward. And we may see it manifest itself in different ways. Let's keep in mind that we've entering into the country tens of millions of illegals from foreign countries, some of whom are trained intelligence operatives from countries like the People's Republic of China or Venezuela or Cuba, and certainly those from the Middle East. So I expect more pain after today. I think we should enjoy today. But I do have a question in closing, Kyle. How long did Hillary Clinton wait before she admitted, conceded to Donald Trump? Is Kamala trying to break that record?
It's possible.
Because she's been silent. And I think Hillary Clinton went, I don't know, I want to say close to almost 20, 24 hours. She went a long time. I think.
I think we'll hear something probably as they promised originally. Isn't it interesting that they actually managed to get the vote counted in the time that we were always familiar with for all of our lives, with the exception of 2020, and they were promising us something else, and Americans seemed to say, I don't think so. Apparently there were threats. We're seeing the GOP said that there were multiple counties in various places where poll watchers were seeing that they wanted to shut down in some of these battleground states. And they said, we're going to shut it down after midnight or 1 o'clock. And they were like, the hell you are. We're going to sue you. In fact, our lawsuit is ready to go. We'll drop it right now. And they went, you know what? No, this is not going to play well. So they were actually had their bluff called. But you brought in the international implications with people coming over the border, the international intelligence operations, so on. There are people all over the world that are reacting to this news. I've got a couple from Britain because they speak English and I can understand that. But it does actually have implications globally. And you and I were touching on that a little bit earlier. Let's talk about that in just a second. Let's bring on what looks like a very happy lady. in Great Britain. These are the kind of people that we would have had join us. We would have let them come in, I think, and they can come and be Americans anytime they want. They don't seem like they're accepted in their home countries now.
Breaking news here in batshit bonkers Britain, where for many of us Trump-supporting, freedom-loving individuals, it's the best day ever. It couldn't be better here in the UK. We have the BBC in absolute ruins. They were unable to announce Trump victory at 7 a.m. and they said Kamala still had a very narrow margin of a route to victory, even though it was obvious she had no route to victory at all. Channel 4's coverage was shite when it started and then completely collapsed, leaving the channel having to pay repeat episode of Friends or something because they had no words to speak about the glorious victory of Trump. And now we have a leader of this country who actively sent over his own teams to try and campaign for Kamala. And we have a foreign secretary who called the new president of the United States of America some of the worst names under the sun. So we can look forward to Trump punishing both of them very hard in the near future. For now, I'm just going to indulge myself in all the tears of all the people who said for all the weeks that they said, oh, it's on a knife edge, it's on a narrow margin. Well, looks like Trump won the popular vote, looks like he's got the House and the Senate, and it looks like most of the swing states have gone red as well, and Georgia by 200,000 votes. I mean, truly, one of the best days ever. Just want to say thank you to all the patriots over in America, to let you know that patriots in this country are cheering you on as loudly as we possibly can.
After hearing a clip like that, I can't believe we ever went to war with those fine folks.
I think she would have gone to war with her government right now, too, though,
yes,
to be fair.
I'm surprised she's not in prison for...
the end of the day.
Yeah, she's going to be in jail. Is that what you said later today?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, my buddy Sean said the funny thing about the UK is that it's Facebook in real life, which is like they're actually living out the Facebook censorship, where if you have bad thoughts or you happen to be praying in the wrong place in your own head silently, or you just happen to post something on social media, they will literally come. They won't just put you in Facebook jail. They'll put you in actual jail, which just says you're there for Facebook, which is pretty wild.
There are major global implications to Donald Trump returning to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. So let me try to put this into a context that won't...
I'm giving you the whole screen. Here we go, George. Go for it.
There was just a meeting the other day of the BRICS, which is a new consortium consisting of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and some other countries have been joining that. And this is BRICS, in layman's terms, is a repudiation of the Bretton Woods Agreement, which was signed in 1944 in the closing days of World War II, where the United States became the guarantor of free trade, free global trade, that they would maintain the open seas, which we're seeing fail in an epic fashion throughout the Arabian Gulf and the Red Sea. And the United States, in return, the US dollar would be used as the global currency for exchanges. And that has been falling apart really since the Soviet Union collapsed in 1989. And these countries have been, and I'm not defending them or criticizing the United States, but using their language, have been kicked around and had their foreign policies moved in directions that they don't like because of the U.S.'s ability to use the dollar to manipulate global events. So they have been working tirelessly for over a decade to move from underneath the dollar to give themselves more latitude to execute policies that are more favorable to their citizenry. Donald Trump's election throws a huge roadblock in that because he understands global finance, global trade. He understands what's going on with BRICS. And I'm not saying this is a Trump sycophant. I'm saying this from his own, his own language that he's been using for over the last 10 years in various interviews, going back to, appearing on various New York radio and television stations.
It's hard to sort of process how much this is going to throw a wrench, because there was an assumption that I think a lot of us were working that even if it wasn't going to be fair, they were still going to put that woman in, which we've talked about our pessimistic outlook. We share that. I think the three of us, there's a reason why two of us are sitting in plate carriers, and Garret O'Boyle doesn't need a plate carrier because he's big enough. He's got God's protection and armor around him at all times anyway. So there is that. But we're all sitting here sporting the same badge, looking at the same thing, that all these institutions that were captured, they're quaking, and the sort of global masters that they tend to serve also are quaking. I listened to Donald Trump's sort of victory speech with CNN was like, well, nobody's called him the victor. I don't know why he's giving a victory speech. Like they were having such a hard time coping, as we were talking about last night on the stream, probably at like 1 a.m. It's like, man, there's so much hard coping going on at this exact moment.
Kyle, is this a pause button on the global reset, or has the global reset been unplugged?
So that's a great question. I think it's going to depend on how this action actually happens. As you mentioned, like 2 years from here, we'll have a better answer from that, right? I mean, it has to be. We have to know whether or not the principles are going to be there. He said they're going to drill. They're going to open up American oil. They're going to sort of unleash the prosperity that Donald Trump's been promising out there. They're going to go and probably engage in the sort of trade war, or at least the trade pressure that was supposed to happen, and try to leverage back some of the control that we ceded. Hopefully that some of the American enemies around the globe actually go back to not knowing what America will react with, which was Donald Trump's biggest, sort of secret power, that these people just literally could not predict how he might do it, that he might pull out a picture and say, here's where your home is. We know where you live, and just don't do what I just said, lest I'll destroy your entire family. There's a real part of America that has always been that. I had a buddy, I had an instructor when I was going through combat control training who was a very well decorated JTAC. He was a special operator in the Air Force. And he was famously known for dropping a bomb on some Al-Qaeda lieutenants, and it was at a wedding. You may even know this story, George, but there was a wedding that got taken out with about 300 people at it, 300 or 400 people, because they had a couple of high-value targets, and there were 2 or 3 of them, and that was enough in the early days of the global war on terror to approve a weapons hot, clear, send it, and dropping it on their heads. And this operator had a wedding cake on the back of his massive body. He was like 6'5", 6'7", something like that. On the back of his entire pallet there, or what do you want to call it, he had a wedding cake with crossed JDAMs and a scroll underneath it that looked like something that you'd see as at like a banner, and it said, "From yours truly." That was something he was kind of proud of. America used to have that unpredictability where it says, yeah, we're going to incur some things, but we're going to go after everybody that you know, you love, and every generation before and after you. And Donald Trump brings that kind of energy, I think, that makes people go like, shit. It makes them just pause. And what do you do next when that guy is in charge?
You probably know the Latin, Kyle, but the Romans used to have a saying, let them hate as long as they fear. That should be the motto of the chief executive of the United States. I don't give a darn what other countries think about us, as long as they fear us.
I also want that for the domestic intelligence apparatus. I want that for the administrative state that exists. I want Elon Musk to put that in his government efficiency office. It should be that. Let them fear. Let them hate as long as they fear it. Yeah. I think all that's good. Let me run through a couple of quick races that did happen. Just so people know.
Let them hate as long as they fear. Sorry.
That's
yeah. Let them hate as long as they fear.
In any iteration, it still makes sense. The Senate race right now looks like it's going to go to Ruben Gallego. So Carrie Lake looks like she's probably not going to win that. They're not done yet. There's only 62% of the vote. I just wanted to run this by you guys as of this morning. Rick Scott projected to run away with it by a lot over in Florida. Senate race in Maryland looks like it's going Democrat. That's not surprising. And Larry Hogan lost. He was a governor, but not a great one. So there's that. He's kind of a nominal Republican, if you will. Looks like it's still a toss-up right now in the Senate race in Michigan, which I thought was interesting. Big one that I thought was good to know is that John Tester, who I despise just because he's a big fat guy, and he looks a lot like the Moob dude that we saw who tore off the white guys for Harris. John Tester got blown out by almost 10 points by Tim Sheehy so far, with almost 90% of the vote coming in. So Montana that's one of those picked up seats. You've also got Nebraska picked up by Deb Fischer over Dan Osborne, who is an independent. Nevada is still too close to call at the moment with only 88% in. Bernie Moreno picked up a seat in in Ohio over Sherrod Brown, which is Sherrod Brown's been there, was the incumbent, so that's kind of a good pickup as well. Pennsylvania is still too close to call, but the Republican Dave McCormick is leading. Ted Cruz stomped on Colin Allred, which is nice to see from those of us in Texas who have been watching that guy. He's basically been lying out of both sides of his face, so worthwhile there. West Virginia, no surprise, Jim Justice keeping on, and looks like Tammy Baldwin is edging it out right now in Wisconsin with 99% of the vote. They haven't projected the winner yet. I don't know why, but it sounds like she's probably going to win that. She's the incumbent there.
Yeah,
what do you think?
It makes no sense. And I know there's a couple cheeseheads in the chat as well, but it makes no sense that Trump wins Wisconsin, but so does Tammy Baldwin. It makes absolutely no sense. And
it tells you the power of the incumbency for whatever that's worth. There is always a massive power. There's this historical precedent where people say, I hate Congress as an institution, to include the House and the Senate, but I love my congressmen, because my congressman comes back and says, they're a bunch of crooks and I'm the only one who's stopping them from screwing you over. And that's been a historical thing for as long as I've been alive, as long as I've been aware of politics, going back to at least to the time I was probably 15 or 16 years old. And I'm sure it's far older. Yeah, back to the revolution.
This is the piece I don't get about it, though, is Tammy Baldwin, she's like Joe Biden. Her scale has continually shifted left the longer she's stayed in office. And it's like, nobody's voting for Tammy Baldwin if they're also voting for Trump, if they've paid even a modicum of attention to the issues. So it doesn't make sense to me, and I've never really understood that. You guys probably do better than I in that regard, because I have also never known anyone who said, yeah, I voted for the Democrat presidential candidate, but then I went and voted for the Republican congressperson. No, you didn't. And then vice versa. You know,
I do occasionally vote off. I don't go straight ticket. I never have. There's some libertarians that were in Texas that I voted for some of the most important positions because they have the experience. That makes a lot of sense. I probably could find a Democrat that was ideologically aligned if there was a really terrible incumbent Republican, just to send the message that this dog shit is not going to stand. But at the end of the day, it's very rare for me to imagine that somebody in the national offices looked at the national priorities and said, yes, I want Trump, but also I want to see a Democratic Senate. Unless the thought is we want to moderate what Trump can do, but then why the hell do you send Trump? Because Trump is a sledgehammer.
I don't think anybody thinks that hard.
I think you're in the right thing here. Let me break over and say thanks to my buddies at Catholic Vote for supporting our podcast, allowing us to do this, has been keeping us on the air in a very real sense. They've been allowing us to have the voice that we have. So if you've been listening to us for the last 2 years as we've been under threat by the FBI, that threat continues, and the people at Catholic Vote are the ones who support me and my family and allow us to always have this platform to come out. We're going to be rebooting something very soon, so you guys will see some more stuff that is coming out. It's going to get very exciting. Keep an eye on the social media channels, but if you want to follow them, it's catholicvote.org, catholicvote.org for faith, family, and freedom. They got the Catholic vote out, so they did the job that they were asked to do. They endorsed Donald Trump, so they're going to call that a victory too, and you can follow them on social medias at Catholic Vote. Really appreciative. That's the coffee cup that I'm drinking if you guys are watching it right there. Gentlemen, I don't want to end with, I want to only end on good things, so let's do a British man. We got a nice British lady. She had kind of an upbeat version of it. Here's a little bit more profane version of the international implications of putting Donald Trump in, which is to say the FU, probably a lot of people, whether they be in Poland or Great Britain or Italy, that sort of understand that the global order is not what they're about. This guy probably sums it up. Again, he speaks English, so I can play his clip on my show. Tuck in. And if you're at work, you might want to tune it down because there's some swearing.
So I can't fucking help this morning but walk around with a bit of smile on my face, knowing fucking Trump has just become the president of the United States. And I find it highly fucking amusing, the amount of people that are now shitting their pants already. Like I've already heard, Sadiq Khan apparently wants to run for the hills because he is fucking scared of Trump. Then you've got old fucking Lammy, who has sat there and slagged Trump off. He will now also be shitting his pants. And let's not forget about fucking Starmer, the man that decided to send out Labour reps to help Harris with her fucking rally against Trump. Well, Starmer, you fucking truly burnt some bridges that you fucking shouldn't have, hey? And let's not fucking also forget all the celebrities, all the movie stars, all the pop stars and fucking singers that come out to also support Harris. Where the fuck are you today? I bet more than half of those people have already jumped on their fucking jets and fucked off somewhere. Because like many of us already know, most of those people are part of the fucking Diddy gang. Now I know there's going to be so many people out there that are going to be pissed off the fact that Trump has just fucking won this. But tough fucking shit. It's
He's so eloquent.
Was that from his Twitter or wherever? Because I need to follow that guy immediately.
Maybe it's from Ashley_real_talk. That's his TikTok right there. I don't know if that's a man named Ashley, but I know men named Ashley, and they tend to be monsters among men. Just
it's like
not
a boy
men to be
named
trifled
Sue,
with.
you know?
Yeah. In fact, the that wedding cake may or may not be tattooed on the back of an Ashley. So, in any case, I don't know who that was, but the guy's giving the tough talk there. George, you were smiling. Your reaction to that guy?
You know, somebody said it. You know, you can't trust someone who doesn't swear. You know, and Mark Twain said that cursing can express feelings from the soul that even prayer cannot.
That's a very eloquent way of defending the way that goes down. Yeah, I don't know. I listen to his accent is also very working class, and you just hear someone having that sort of just brashness coming in from the UK.
In a Guy Ritchie film.
You could see him in a Guy Ritchie film, but the most important thing for me is that we're being told that Britain has ceded territory, and a lot of America looks at itself as ceded territory. And then you look at the map right now, and it washed over. They took North Carolina, Pennsylvania went, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada, which was questionable, Arizona, like all these states either went all the way, or Arizona looks like it's still kind of leaning, but it doesn't look like it's achievable in what I'm seeing. So there you go. I mean, the mandate is in. I don't know. Did we play Scott Jennings? Did you guys see Scott Jennings yet, or do I still have that last little clip there?
I still have that one, I think.
Okay, let me play one last little clip. This is Scott Jennings. This is what it means. He's been the only voice of sanity. I think CNN wants to be relevant again, so good for them.
They want to make money, and they've not been. You know, they've been struggling because of people like. Well, I guess it's Morning Joe's on MSNBC.
MSNBC. But listen, CNN is trying to track, at least on the TV audience, back to people who actually have some sanity. I don't mind that they've got crazies as long as they put guys like this. And I actually like his accent, which is both polished but also Southern. And it lets people know, like, real Americans, they don't agree with you. And they never did. And they didn't in 2020 either. So here he is breaking it down. These are the implications.
This is a mandate. He's won the national popular vote. For the first time for a Republican, for the first time since 2004. This is a big deal. This isn't backing into the office. This is a mandate to do what you said you were going to do. Get the economy working again for regular working class Americans, fix immigration, try to get crime under control, try to reduce the chaos in the world. This is a mandate from the American people to do that. I think I'm interpreting the results tonight as the revenge of just the regular old working class American, the anonymous American who has been crushed, insulted, condescended to. They're not garbage. They're not Nazis. They're just regular people who get up and go to work every day and are trying to make a better life for their kids, and they feel like they have been told to just shut up when they have complained about the things that are hurting them in their own lives. I also feel like this election, as we sit here and pour over this tonight, is something of an indictment of the political information complex. I mean, we've been sitting around here for the last couple of weeks, and the story that was portrayed was not true. I mean, we were told Puerto Rico was going to change the election. Liz Cheney, Nikki Haley voters, women lying to their husbands. Before that, it was Tim Walz and the camo hats. Night after night after night, we were told all these things and gimmicks were going to somehow push Harris over the line, and we were just ignoring the fundamentals. Inflation, people feeling like that they were barely able to tread water at best. That was the fundamentals of the election.
That's about the most reasonable take I've heard yet.
George?
Yeah, I'm going to actually just go to myself. A year and a half ago, you, me, and Garret were sitting on a balcony in Fort Lauderdale, and I said that we're stuck in a heat wave, and that a cold front will eventually sweep through and push it out. But there will be turmoil associated with that cold front. You remember that conversation?
Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That cold front showed up on the radar last night. It's coming.
That's about as ominous as it gets.
Well,
how is Dean?
But
I agree with you. I don't.
The backside of that is it's going to be beautiful
in the morning.
Clear, low humidity, comfortable weather, and it's going to get pushed out, but there will be some turmoil associated with it.
I think it sounds like this.
If all these Republicans who got swept into office follow through on their promises.
Yeah, it sounds something like,
weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning.
That's Martin Luther King Jr. With a famous "Joy cometh in the morning" moment, obviously. How's Dina Perkins feeling this morning? Dina, how are you feeling this morning?
Hopefully she's ready for her pink slip.
Yeah. Steve Friend just sent off a little thing that just said, "See you soon," to the FBI on Twitter and tagged them, which I do appreciate that in a big way. Let it be so.
No
Gents,
doubt.
I got something to play us out. If you got any final thoughts, I'll give it to you, and then either one of you, if you want to close something, and then let's play it out with something fun, because I got something that I was jamming to last night when it was way too late to be awake. George, you want to go first? Any final thoughts on the on at least what's starting to be the beginning of this morning?
Please don't squander this opportunity. That's all I got.
Brilliant. Garrett, if you want, and if you wanted to pray us out, I'd be okay with that too.
Yeah, for sure. I will do that.
I'm gonna take off my hat for that, my friend.
I was going that route. I was going to talk about, I know I mentioned it in my Bible study earlier, and I was going to just leave us with something I left those guys with last night. And then I tweeted it in the middle of the night last night. And it is from the book of Daniel, which I've been really reflecting on and studying a lot lately. And honestly, I have been in Daniel quite a bit the last few years, probably since about 2020, to be honest. But in Daniel 2, chapter 21, it says, he changes times and seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. And I sent this tweet out last night, and I said, this was the tweet no matter who won. And at Bible study last night, and a couple weeks ago, I was in northern Wisconsin, and I gave a speech, and I read this verse there. And I've really been reflecting on it quite a bit. And I had this overwhelming sense of peace last night. I kept referring to that to Heidi, and we tried to stay away from the election coverage. We watched some TV, and we hung out and chatted. But then she kind of dozed off on the couch, and I went to Twitter and was paying a lot of attention then. But I had this in considering our circumstances, like I'm still, for those who maybe aren't up to date, I still am technically an FBI employee. I've been suspended for over 2 years without pay for the vast majority of that time. And, we're continuing to drive forward. I talked to one of my attorneys already this morning, and they think obviously that this should help, but it goes to what Scott Jennings was just saying. This was an indictment for our politicians, our quote unquote leaders, to do what they were elected to do. And that is to bring some real change to what has been happening. And as I think or thought of this verse, I think I get that peace because regardless of the shenanigans, regardless of who turns out to vote or what demographics are targeted or whatever, when all the dust settles, it is God who removes kings and sets up kings. And for some reason, and I know it's more than a reason, but for some reason, God has decided to give us a little grace for at least the next 4 years. And it's going to come with turmoil, no doubt about it. There's no doubt that there will be turmoil ahead, and it's not going to be perfect. But he for some reason has allowed a reprieve from the march towards Sodom and Gomorrah that we've seen intensify in recent history. But that's the diatribe, and yeah, I'll lead us out in some prayer. Lord, thank you for these men. Thank you for Kyle and George and Steve and Marcus and others who are not known publicly. Thank you for everyone listening, everyone paying attention, everyone who went out and did their civic duty to vote. For everyone, Lord, in this country. And our country is going to need healing. Our country is going to need to turn back to you even more. And we know that there's a lot of work to do. And we also know if we bring it to the foot of the cross, that it can be done. And we know that Donald Trump is not a perfect man. We know that no one in government We know that ourselves, we know that no one in this world is perfect. We know that we are all sinners and we are all imperfect. And we know that it is through your son's work on that cross that we can be saved, that we can come to you. Your grace and your love and your forgiveness are what can bring us to you and make us whole in you. And so we thank you for that gift, the gift of your son and his death on that cross. And we thank you for this nation. We thank you for the freedoms that we do have, and help us all to not forget this moment and to not forget our nation and to not forget the work that is ahead, because it will take a lot of work and it will take a lot of boldness and it will take men and women of strong courage and of strong faith to bring America into a righteous position in your eyes again. And we ask that for our nation, Lord, that we do become righteous in your eyes. We know we won't be perfect, but we know we can turn to you and we can enjoy the blessings that you have given us for many generations. And we also ask you, Lord, to embolden us and empower us to help our nation in that regard. And we pray these things in your son's name. Amen.
Amen. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me this morning. Thanks for being my brothers in all of this. And God bless America. God bless all of you who are listening. Thanks for being part of the show. I've got a little pep talk as we go off into the day. Nothing says it like a little bit of 80s remixed Europe. We're now into it. Hopefully God's hand is on us as we move towards January. I think it's going to get interesting. But thanks so much for being part of the program, y'all. And this is my little sign off. We're not going to play the outro. We're going to play this.
He calls it Dark MAGA.
As you can see, I'm not just MAGA, I'm Dark MAGA.
My sole and exclusive mission is to go to work for our country, to go to work for you. It's time to deliver a victory for the American people. We don't win anymore, but we are going to start winning again.
I'm not just MAGA, I'm Dark Gothic MAGA.
From mountain to mountain, from ocean to ocean, hear these words. You will never be ignored again. And yes, together, we will make America great again.